And welcome to another episode of the Rorschach Test Podcast. I am your host, Tyrell James. Today I have a very special guest with me, Miss V, the Storyteller. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
That is good. That is good. I'm excited about this. We just finished doing a podcast where you were interviewing me,
Yes.
and now the roles are reversed. I get to interview you. So I want to talk. I think this is really interesting. I normally interview entertainers, um, politicians, business owners, people who have like really interesting stories, and I have been trying to find somebody to interview that had a bit of a different story when it came to entertainment.
Yeah.
So you now, in addition to being a storyteller, you're a podcaster as well, and I have interviewed other podcasters, but I've never interviewed anybody that just said, "Look, I'm a storyteller."
Yes, that's
I'm a
exactly what I
storyteller.
am. I
Right.
am a
So,
storyteller and I use my personal stories to help people.
mhm,
I've been on, different shows where I did like a storytelling. I've been during I've done storytelling contests and I've been on stage doing storytellers, but every single story has always been my own. Now,
mhm.
most storytellers, they tell fables and different things. Not me. All my stories are personal in their mind.
Okay. All right. So, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to get a little personal today.
Yeah. Look.
Okay, so if it's your first time watching, what I do here at the Rorschach Test Podcast is I put up a series of Rorschach or inkblot tests, and I
Mhm.
ask my guests what they see. So based off what they see, I connect it to who they are as a person and their passions and what they do for a living. In this case, we're going to connect this to storytelling. So, but before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about your past. So, growing up, what was it like for you? Just growing up as a little girl.
Well, as a little girl, I stopped talking at the age of 6, and it was primarily because of a lot of family dynamics that was going on in my home. My dad was a yeller, so that was his way of communicating. He was a yeller, but he got it from my grandfather, who also was a yeller. So it
Okay.
was like a learned behavior. But I came into the world apparently very shy and very timid.
Hmm.
So I decided at 6 to stop talking. I'm like, if I stop talking, I won't get into trouble, because your mouth gets you in trouble. But if you don't use your mouth for the most part, I thought I wouldn't get in trouble. And at that time, it was a way of me protecting myself, from getting into trouble. But it went on too long. I didn't get my voice back until I was 23. So through elementary school, middle school, high school, I didn't talk. I'm a little fluffy on the fluffy side, always have been. And it was hell. It was pretty bad, because when people find out that you're shy and that you don't talk, they will just come for you. It's like they beeline for you. They start abusing you. They start bullying you and joking and talking about you. So it was very difficult growing up. It was really hard for me.
Hmm. So when you say you stopped talking, um, do you mean you just went silent altogether,
For the
or
most
you
part, yeah.
just okay? So
Yeah,
so
if,
you
if
were
someone said something to me, I would say something back, but I would never initiate a conversation.
okay.
In school, my teachers, they sent notes home. I need your daughter to start talking and speaking up. If they call upon me, I wouldn't open my mouth. Now, I will say, through God's grace, I had some teachers who saw something in me and they were able to get me to talk to them and answer questions.
Hmm.
But it wasn't a lot. But, I just felt like, to protect me, if you just be quiet and you don't say anything, you won't get into trouble. And as a child, it worked for a minute. My dad, he thought something was wrong with my ears. Let me tell y'all, he had me to go and get my ears checked. He had my mom to take me to get my ears checked. And my dad called me that morning. He said, if nothing's wrong with your ears, when I get home, I'll whip your ass. When I went to get my ears checked, listen, y'all, I'm not stupid. I was a very smart child. I didn't hear nothing. And I was going to save my butt that night. I
Hmm.
didn't hear nothing. They gave him some medication for my ears.
Hmm.
And I made sure when my dad came home, he saw it. But there was nothing wrong with my ears. I just didn't like the yelling and the fussing and all that. And then my siblings, they would tell on me, or they would accuse me of doing stuff that I didn't do, knowing that I wasn't going to say anything, or, try to protect they knew I wasn't going to say anything. And then my
Hmm.
parents believed it, which went into a whole nother thing. So yeah, and making the decision to not talk, it sounded good at the time, but it went on way too long,
Hmm.
entirely too long.
Right. Okay. So, all right. So I wanna go ahead and get into these pictures, but we're gonna actually be touching a little bit on the things that you went through in childhood, and we're going to connect to the point where you found your voice, and then what ultimately led you to where you are now. Okay.
Okay.
So I want to start here. Okay. So what did you say that you saw here?
I saw a tiara or a crown.
Okay. All right. So with actually, can you break that down? Are you able to explain why you see that?
This was one that I just kept looking at and I couldn't see anything. And what I thought about is it's a crown, and it represents who I know that I am right now. And I'm a queen.
Hmm.
I am a queen. I've been through a lot. And to
Okay.
get to this point in my life, I see it. I'm a crown. I put that on, and I know that I am a queen. I know who I am now. I
Hmm.
have been through a lot. I've done a lot of healing. I've done a lot of therapy. I've done all those things to get me to the point where I feel like I know who I am. I know my worth, and I'm a queen, and I should be treated accordingly. So that was like, oh my God, that's powerful, because I thought about it after and I was like, wow, why did you see that? And
Hmm.
that's what I came up with, because it represents who I am now.
Okay. Um, so now I want to go back to childhood now, though.
Hmm.
So little girls, they love to play dress up and imagine as if they are a princess,
Hmm.
with their tiaras on. But if you think about the way a princess is treated, the princess, she's catered to, she's very, very protected, right? So I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about imagination, and I want to talk about the need to be protected. So when you were a little girl, did you feel protected? And
No.
if not, okay. So if not, well, since you didn't feel protected, did you ever use your imagination to try to escape to a place of peace?
Yes, my imagination has always been with me from a child. And that's why I know that it's a gift from God to be a storyteller. Because even as a child, my imagination, that was my safe place. That was my way of protecting myself. I didn't have to use my voice, but I could go into when things got too rough or too hard for me. I was a loner. I have siblings, but they were outward. They would go out and all that. I'm an introvert,
Okay.
and I would stay by myself, and I would be in my room, and I have my dolls, and I would play, and I would have a whole story. I would make up stories with my doll baby. So my
Hmm.
imagination was a safe place for me. And
Hmm.
that's why I know when I go back that this was something that was in me, and it was just growing. It was just being fed. Yeah, I had to go through a whole lot, but
Hmm.
it was like it was being watered. Every time I got over something to another thing, to another thing, it was just preparing me and helping me for who I was going to be. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I use my imagination, and even my mind is just a world of imagination. If I'm at a restaurant and I'm waiting for my food, I'm looking at couples and I'm making up stories about them. I'm using my imagination and saying, oh, they having an affair over there. Look at him. He just came in. That's how my mind works. And
Okay.
that's what makes a great storyteller, because of that,
Hmm.
from a child.
Got you. Okay. Okay. And that makes sense. That definitely makes sense because especially if you're using that as a kid to escape,
Mhm.
to escape, you can get so lost in your imagination that you have created a completely different world. So, and if that sticks with you as you're getting older, then it's really easy to just escape to that world whenever you feel the need to, whether it's for protection, whether it's to create, but that place has become your safe haven. And that's where you have all the control.
And you
And
have
that's
all
where you can feel whatever it is that you want or need to feel.
Yeah, and that's where you have all the power.
Right.
Because I didn't have the power as a 6-year-old to say whatever I wanted to without
Right.
getting in trouble. But
Hmm.
in my imagination, I could tell you off. I could
Right.
tell my
Exactly.
siblings off. I could
Hmm.
tell anybody who mistreated me, the bullies in school and all that. I could go right in my mind and I could tell them exactly how I felt at
Uh-huh.
the time. And that is why I went there. I'm like, oh, because I felt like if I kept it inside, like I kept it buried and pushed down, it
Hmm.
wouldn't have been good for me. But if
Hmm.
I could go in my imagination and get it out through my mind and
Hmm.
have a conversation and tell you off, then
Right.
that was a form of getting it out of me. And it was also protecting my heart
Right.
because you don't want all that junk to get in your heart because it makes you bitter. Now, I
Right.
did have some years, that middle school through that high school.
Hmm.
Woo! I had some bitterness,
Hmm.
some real bitterness that got in my heart. But as a child, that was my safe haven, and I could use my mind to tell whatever I wanted to say.
Okay, so I want to. Okay, still sticking with that crown. So heavy is the head who wears the crown. I want to talk about the penalty for leadership.
Hmm.
So um, one of the penalties for leadership is being the target of ridicule.
Right.
And you were no stranger to being the target of ridicule because you were bullied. Uh,
Absolutely.
so tell me, how did the things that you went through back then prepare you for where you are right now?
Well, I look at it as this. I needed to go through those things. It wasn't easy. It was very difficult. But in order for me to be the woman that I am today, to have the platform that I have today, I needed to go through those things. I
Hmm.
had to go through being bullied. I would have preferred not to be physically bullied because the dude put his hands on me.
Hmm.
However, the verbal and all that, because people are going to talk about you. People are not
Right.
going to agree with you. People are going to joke you. People are going to do those things. You have to have tough skin. I
Hmm.
didn't have tough skin. I was scared. But as me going through each year, going through each, school level, I began to get tougher skin. Now, it got to a point where I became those people as an adult, as an early adult. I became those people who mistreated me. And that's because I didn't have the tools that I needed to like put it into the right direction. I
Hmm.
was a hurt person hurting people.
Right.
So I started treating people the way they treated me. But I also
Hmm.
needed to go through that so that I can learn how to have compassion for people and how to forgive people and be more understanding because that's what I needed and that's what I wanted. And I wasn't getting that. But again, I had to go through all those things. So now when I'm talking to someone or I'm helping someone find their story and I'm helping somebody to get over trauma from the past, anything, I can pull from all those memories and I can
Hmm.
find a story and I can share that story with that person and they can connect with me because they're going to say, you know exactly how I felt because you've been through it. So
Right.
how did you get over it? How did you get through it? And I'm able to tell them, and I'm not pulling stuff from a book. I'm not pulling stuff from whatever. I'm pulling it from my heart and from
Right.
what I actually went through. And when people hear that, they're like, oh my God, you got it, the nail right on the head. You know exactly what I'm feeling. I think
Hmm.
I can do it because you represent what I've been through.
Right. Hmm. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And I think we spoke yesterday when we were talking about connecting the dots.
Yeah.
So it helps you when it helps you to understand better the things that you went through when you were younger. When you see where you are now and you're able to connect those dots, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It all starts to make sense. Something that made absolutely no sense back then, it makes all the sense in the world right now. And it's almost as if you didn't only go through that for you, you went through that for somebody who has that same story that's coming up and is going to need that advice. Somebody who's going to need somebody to help guide them through all of the things that you already went through so that you can make their journey that much easier.
And like I said on my podcast, I can help them to rewrite their story
Exactly.
because it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't
Right.
have to go down that road. I can protect you and keep you from going down that same road that I did. We can put
Hmm.
a stop to it and we can take that chapter and we can turn that chapter into something positive instead of
Hmm.
something negative.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to the next picture. So, what
Ah,
did you say you saw here?
I saw two birds at the top, and they just having a good old conversation, and they're sitting on the top of a dog's head. It looks like a dog, like a little puppy, and the two chickens are on the top having a conversation. I
Okay.
know. I'm very visual, and I'm a storyteller, so I can make a whole story out of this block. I can write a book on it.
That works for me because the more information you give me, the easier it is for me to ask these questions. So,
Yeah.
okay, so I have one question, but I want you to answer this question for three different times in your life. So
Okay.
first, I want you to answer this question according to you being a little girl.
Okay.
Then I want you to answer this question at the point where you found your voice.
Okay.
And then you said you were 23 when you found your voice, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then I want you to answer this question again where you are right now. Okay.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. So let's say that you're being bullied, and that's at all 3 points.
Mhm.
Little girl, once you found your voice right now, you're being bullied. Okay.
Mhm.
You got two dogs. I'm sorry, you got two birds sitting on top of a dog's head. They're having a conversation, right? So let's say that these two birds and this dog each represent a part of your emotions and your personality.
Mhm.
Starting with when you were a little girl and you're being bullied. One of those birds wants to fly away and flee. The other bird wants to shit on the person's head.
Mhm.
And meaning they want something to happen to the person, but they want it to happen from a distance so that it seems as if they're not even connected to it. And then the dog is just sniffing out the situation, trying to determine, do I attack or do I protect? And when I say attack, I mean understanding that some people just have to get bitten.
Mhm.
When I say protect, I'm talking about protecting your peace.
Okay.
Because sometimes dogs, just their mere presence is protection. Somebody tries to break into a house, they hear a dog barking. I don't want to break into this house. Sometimes all that dog's presence is the only thing that's needed is that dog's presence to protect. Okay. So again, I know I said a lot here. I'm going to do a quick recap. Each one of those two birds, this dog, they all represent a part of your personality. Okay. You have one bird that wants to fly away and flee. You have another bird that wants to shit on the person's head. They want something to happen to the person, but from a distance. And to the point where I'm not even connected to it. I just need something to happen to the person, right? Or are you just sniffing out the situation to determine whether or not you need to bite the person or if you just need to protect your peace?
Okay.
So which one of those two birds or that dog were you as a little girl?
As a little girl, probably more so the dog sniffing out the situation. Um, I think I was more so, although I didn't talk, I really did listen and pay attention. And that's how I was able to, that's why I believe now that I'm able to read people very well. Because
Hmm.
when you're quiet, you use your other senses and they
Okay.
kind of like heighten. So
Hmm.
I could hear, I could tell when somebody was lying or somebody's not quite truthful, being that person, that dog that just sat and sniffed and watched. Because if you watch a dog, sometimes they're just sitting in the room. You don't know what they're doing. You think they paying attention to everything. They're
Right.
listening and they're just absorbing. And that's exactly what I was doing as a child because I didn't use my voice, but I did pay attention. I
Hmm.
did listen, to what was going on around me. Now, I wish I had have been a little bit of a dog with a bark and
Okay.
used my voice and
Hmm.
said something sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes I wish I had have spoken up and said something. So I wish I had a little bit of a bite, but I would, the flying away and the pooping on somebody, that's on them. I don't have no time for, they gonna get theirs.
So you basically were protecting your peace, and that was part
Yeah,
of you going silent.
yeah.
Okay.
It was protection.
Okay.
Now in middle school, um, I think I, What was do the bird for me again? Because there was one bird, the one that tell me about the one that flew away. What
That
happened?
just fleeing, that bird is scared and trying to get as far away as possible.
Okay, and then the one that poop. Well, you can just forget the one that pooping on peeping,
Okay.
whatever. That's just not me. That has
Okay.
never been on me trying to poop on peeping on, and that's never been me. So I'm
Okay.
either gonna be the bird that flew away or the
Oh,
dog.
for the
And
dog. Okay. Hmm.
what represents the dog again?
So the dog represents the dog is pretty much sniffing out the situation, but then trying to determine, do I need to bite this person or do I just need to protect my peace?
Okay, I'm still the dog as a teenager. I'm still the dog because during that time, I spoke up, and that's the part that set the bully off because
Hmm.
the bully was used to me not talking at all.
So
And
that's
that
where the
was the
bite
time,
came.
that's when, yeah, I spoke up for myself.
Hmm.
And I said something in class. Basically, what happened was he started joking me, and in class, I never said anything. So my classmates, they never bothered me anything because I was always the quiet person doing their work. Well,
Hmm.
this particular day, he decided to start picking on me and talk about my weight. Well, I don't know who took over my body, but somebody jumped inside of me and opened my mouth because it wasn't me. And I turned around and I said to him, I said, you know what? I can lose weight, but you cannot lose ugly. He lost it. The boy lost it. The class bust out laughing. He got mad. He turned like 4 shades of red, and that was really hard for him because he was dark complected. And he was so hot with me. And he waited for me when school was over. He waited for me in the hall, and he jumped out and he said, "Oh, you got jokes? I'll show you what jokes in it." He just started ramming me into the wall, like
Mm,
pushing me into the wall, and just he jumped, he jumped me. It's funny now, but back then I
mhm.
was scared to death. But
Right.
that was the little bark when I was
Hmm.
talking about the dog. That was a little bark. I wish I had just kept quiet with the situation until
Right.
I had it more under control. But then there was a protection element that came in. And we're gonna call my teacher another dog because he was the one that protected me from him. He kept him from bullying me anymore. So
Okay.
I had like the owner of the dog came in and kind of protected me. So
Right.
yeah, I'm still the dog, but just at different stages. Maybe I was a puppy back then. Little puppies just like to love on you. And then now I'm becoming, a little bit more of into myself as the the dog that I saw. And then later on, I'm like the full blown, roof dog,
Okay.
barking dog with a voice.
Okay. So what about where you are right now? Let's say that you're bullied right now. Which one? Now we're not. You're not going to be the bird that's pooping on anybody now.
Never.
But so now, who are you?
I still feel like I still feel like I am the dog, but like I said, I feel like I have my voice now and I'm
Hmm.
able to, I know how to use my bark. You know
Right.
how some dogs, every time somebody walk by, "Roo," no, that's not me, but
Hmm.
I will bark when it's necessary. So I have learned how to use my bark. I've learned how to use my voice to help people. In a situation with a dog, if an intruder is coming, I know how to bark to get your attention. I know how
Hmm.
to use my voice to get your attention and to grab, but I also know how to love on you and to protect you and to just jump in your lap and love all over you when you
Hmm.
need that. So I'm able to take those emotions and put them in the right perspective and give, let's say, my owner or my customers or my clients what they need.
Right. Okay. So it seems like you are protector and attacker. Now, and when I say attacker, I don't want it to come across as a negative thing because I don't mean attacking in a negative way. But when you say you found your bark,
Mhm.
it seems like the protecting and the attacking, they're working together here. Sometimes to protect your peace, you know when to go silent and
Mhm.
let other people run their mouth. But sometimes I have to bark too
Mhm.
because sometimes you got to know that what's coming along with this bark is a bite. So
Yeah.
the bark is the warning. That's your warning shot.
Hmm.
Don't get so close that you have to now deal with the bite.
Right.
So, okay.
So,
So,
but for me, now I will share, and like I shared with you yesterday, a little bit of it is that when I did get my voice back, I went to that little dog who was just watching, the little puppy and all that. I went straight to an attack dog
hmm,
because I had been through so much hurt and pain, from junior high school all the way up until I was 23. I had been, people were still mistreating me and bullying me and just doing negative things to me. So I was hurt. And
right,
so I turned into the attack dog and I started attacking other people. I was going
right.
to get you before you got me. But
Hmm,
then the good thing about the not talking way back then was I was a good listener. And one day, God had me just shut down. I was at a football game. He shut the whole game down. And He allowed me to hear who I had turned into. And I realized that now I was the big attack bulldog and I was tearing people up the same way they were mistreating and doing me. And that bothered me.
hmm,
By the time I got to the car, I was crying. I was so upset about it. And I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, I don't want to attack people, but I don't want to be walked all over. I need a good medium. I need you to help me to get some, a little bit. I just want to be the guard dog, and give
right.
you love when you need it, protection when you need. I want to be that. I don't want to be the pit bull who just keep attacking, 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 or the little dog that sits in the corner and just timid and scared. I want
Right.
to be that protector, to
Hmm,
protect others and myself. And that's what God is doing with me right now. I'm not 100% um protector all the time. A little bit of pit bull comes out of me sometimes.
right.
And then, so yeah.
Hmm. And I think you need that.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I definitely think you need that. You don't want to. You want to. On one of my other podcasts, the Quotes and Mirrors podcast, one of our quotes was, uh, "Be be peaceful, not harmless."
I like that.
And that's what you want to do. You want to be peaceful, but they need to understand that I'm not so peaceful to the point that I won't do harm.
Right.
I will definitely inflict harm if I need to, but first and foremost, I want peace.
And I
And
think you want to
and
be approachable.
right, exactly. And the only time I become harmful is when you interrupt my peace. That's it.
Yeah, that's
You know.
right.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
mhm. Okay. All right, I got you. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to move on to the next picture.
Oh, that was something.
All right. So,
Yeah, that
what
one
did
was
you say you
something.
saw here?
So at the bottom, towards the bottom, I see a man,
Hmm,
with his hands in his laps, kind of like sitting in a yoga pose.
hmm,
And behind him, I see eyes and I see people and I see spirits. The different colors to me represent spirits. And they're good spirits and they're bad spirits. But the eyes, the people that's watching him and the eyes and all that are behind him and they're watching him or
hmm.
her. That's kind of like what I saw.
Okay. All right. So, when you were a kid, you had you had males that had their sights when you said that he was watching, he was seeing something. I'm talking about in the picture here. You said this man you saw, he was looking at something, right?
No, the man was just sitting there. It was the eyes that's behind him and the
There were eyes
spirits
behind
behind
him.
him
Okay.
watching him
Okay.
or
Um.
her.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say the man had? I know. You're saying or her, but where I'm going with my question is more so I have to like stick with the man here.
Okay.
So, but did you say that the man had eyes?
Yes, the man was sitting in a yoga
Okay.
pose at the bottom,
Okay.
um,
So,
forward, but then the eyes that I saw was those things behind his head, along with
okay.
the different colors to represent spirits, good and bad.
Got you. Okay. So this man, well, when you were younger, you had certain males that caused um caused both emotional and physical pain. You had to deal with that abuse, with both
Mhm,
emotional and psychological and physical abuse, right?
mhm.
Now, there were bad spirits, because you said there were spirits around. So you got
Mhm,
good spirits, you got bad spirits, right? So there were bad spirits that were driving them to do the things that they were doing, correct?
mhm,
Now, nobody is all good or all bad. And because of that, especially when we're talking about somebody that's younger, sometimes we have to allow people the space and time to grow
mhm,
and to change, right? So, with that being said, let's say that this guy that you spoke about earlier, this bully, okay,
mhm.
let's say that at this point in your life, he came to you and he wanted to apologize to you because now he's being driven by good spirits and he wants to erase all of the things that he did when he was younger. He wants to no longer allow those bad spirits to lead him. So now, with him letting these good spirits lead him, he wants to apologize to you for all of the things that he took you through. How does that, so you, Miss V, the storyteller, how does that story go?
Well, the story would go like this. Because of who I am and the way that I am now, I would most likely cut him some grace by allow him to even approach me and to come to so that I can find out what he has to say. And he
Okay.
came if he came to me and he wanted to apologize and he was specific in saying, not generalize it, but I need you to be specific because
Hmm.
what you did to me was specific. It wasn't a general. I can't say you just generally bullied me because in school I was bullied, but
Hmm.
you were the one that put your hands on me. So I need you to recognize that part of the bullying because
Hmm.
that was the part that traumatized me. So if he came to me and he said to me, I want to apologize for putting my hands on you, for making you feel less than, for joking you, for constantly making you fearful and feel unprotected day after day. I would most likely forgive him for that.
Hmm.
However, because of the trauma attached to it, I would need to see a physical difference. Because, like I said, people can say anything and they can be genuine with it, but your actions speak louder than words. So if I'm around you and every time I see you, I see that good-hearted person, that forgiving person, that person that's changed, I'm good with that. But if you're not showing me that, then the words you just said to me, they fall flat
Right.
because they don't line up.
Hmm.
And so I would accept the apology. I would forgive him, and I've forgiven him. And I'm able, that's why I would be able to be in a room with him and allow him to come and approach me because I've forgiven him. And I didn't do it for him, I would have done it for me because I don't want to hold all that hatred and bitterness in my heart. However, when you come to me, make sure you're authentic. Make sure it's from your heart and it's pure. Make sure you've done soul searching so that when you come to me the right way. But then you also have to take it a step further and you need to show me. You need to set, you need, whenever I see you, every time I see you, I want to see the person who just came to me and apologized to me. And I
Okay.
think, if it's genuinely from your heart, you don't have to do any work. You don't have to put on anything. You don't have to do anything because that's who you are now. But if it's not true and authentic, every time you see me, you got, oh, I told her, ooh, I got to put on. So you got to put that on because that's not authentic. That's not who you really are. That's who you
Hmm.
want to represent.
Okay. So I want to know, how did it affect you going through that with him? How did that shape the way you view men? And again, I want to talk about good spirits and bad spirits here again because that's what you said you saw in the picture. Um, and when I say, well, so me trying to add these spirits to this particular question, um, I wanted you, I had another question prepared, but because of the way you answered this, I want to go somewhere else with this. I'm getting rid of that other question.
Okay.
So, so I'm trying to get this question together. Um, with the way that you started to view men after that, was it a spiritual thing, like to the point where when you met a man or when you were approached by a man, if something was off, was your spirit vexed? And if something wasn't off, was your spirit at ease?
Well, it was a combination because the reason why I got my voice back is because I became a Christian at 23 and
Okay.
God helped me to get my voice back, and it was through him. So my view of men, you have to understand, as women, as little girls, our first real encounter with a man is our father if he's in our life.
Right.
Or if he's not, if we have a brother, it's usually a brother or uncle, whoever comes around.
Hmm.
So for me, my experience with men prior to becoming a Christian was always fearful that they were going to hurt me, that they were going to joke me, that they were going to talk about me, that they were going to mistreat me because that's how I had been treated. Now, I had some boyfriends in between there, that were okay. But at the end, they end up being more kind of like my dad. And I don't want to put his business out there, but let's just say sometimes you date your father. Some women, you end up dating your father.
Okay.
And, my daddy liked the women, period. That's all I'm gonna put on him. I'll just say, my dad liked the women,
Okay.
period. But once I became a Christian, my discernment was a little bit more heightened.
Hmm.
And, my spirituality began to grow, and I was able to see the good spirits and the bad spirits in people.
Hmm.
But because I wanted to have that love and that affection and all that from a man, I pushed things away. I just made excuses
Hmm.
because of my desire to have someone to love me, to accept me, to want me, and to hear things. You're beautiful, I just love you, and all those things. The signs, although the women intuition and all those things that was there that I had, I would
Hmm.
make excuses because I wanted that. But after being hurt so many times, I'm like, oh no, I'm done. When the
Hmm.
flags are flying, I'm paying attention.
Hmm.
When my intuition is bubbling over and overflowing, I'm listening
Hmm.
because it's to protect me. And I've always wanted to feel protected. So
Hmm.
God gave women intuition to help protect us.
Right. So
Although
you.
we have men to protect us, we still have that gut feeling that something in us. And we
Mhm.
just have to be in tune to it and pay attention. And now I do that.
So that intuition is your spiritual protection.
It is, yes. All women have it. We all, that's why we can look you right. And let's go back to your parents, your mom. Your
Hmm.
mom could look you right in your face and look at you and say, you lying. You know what? You need to tell the truth. If you don't get your butt in there, your mother, they
My mother
had
can do
those.
that right now.
Yes. It's
Not
the
just as a kid. She can
women.
do that right now.
Right. We're born with it. Like I was telling you yesterday, even with my mother, when
Hmm.
she's not telling the truth, like, "Hey, mama, come on now." Because all women have intuition, so we can tell it's just if we're in tune to it or if we push it aside and don't listen. That's our way of being unprotected.
Hmm.
But if we listen to it, and even if we unsettle with it, for me, if I'm unsettled, if it's something about somebody, if I look at them like, God, it's something about it, I don't know what it is, I
Hmm.
immediately start to pray about it. Lord, what is it about this person? Why do I feel unsettled around him? What is it? And then eventually it's revealed to me. Sometimes it doesn't come right away
Hmm.
because either I'm learning a lesson or there's something that needs to be done. But once it's done, immediately I know what it is.
Hmm. Okay.
So I have a good relationship now with them. Y'all come with a whole bunch of foolishness. The sister's gonna let you know, listen, baby, I'm not the one. I love you, but bye. I'm not doing it.
Uh, and if you get too close, that's when that dog's gonna come out and bite.
Oh no, man, I'm not a fighter, but I have learned the gift of my mouth.
Hmm.
I got my mouth back, and I have learned through humor, sarcasm,
Hmm.
a little bit of a
But
little,
that's where the bite is. I don't necessarily mean fighting
yeah,
physically, but so, there are of course other ways to fight. And sometimes there has to be a verbal fight, or a verbal bite
yeah,
for them to understand. Got to stay away from this one. Can't do this.
yeah. Or and sometimes I think sometimes people need like a little bark to let you know, okay, now, if you continue along these lines, you might get bitten. So
Hmm.
you make a decision. Do you want to keep coming on at me that way? Or do
Hmm.
you, you want to change the way you're coming at me so you can turn that small bite into a little cuddling, jumping in your lap and loving on you, or do you want to turn it into a full blown bite?
Right.
You
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. Okay. So we are going to move on to the next part of the show. So this right here, I call flip the script. So what I'm going to do is all of the pictures that I showed you, I'm going to turn them upside down,
Oh, okay.
and then I'm going to tell you what I see.
Okay. Cool.
So based off of what I see, with each picture, I want you to just choose one of these pictures, and you can ask me whatever question you want to ask me based off of what I tell you that I see.
Oh, I like this part. Woo!
Okay, so right here, this right here, it looks like a sugar glider. You know what a sugar glider is?
Nope.
Okay. I'll tell you what that is. I'll show you a picture of it in a second. So, but it looks like a sugar glider that believes it's all powerful with a crown hovering above its head. Now, this right here is a sugar glider.
Oh, that looks like one of those flying rats. Not rats. What they call them? Flying squirrels. That's what
Right,
it looks
yeah.
like.
Exactly. Uh-huh.
Or a bat.
So, now that you see that, let's look at this picture again. Right in the middle, can you tell the face right there in the middle?
I can.
Okay, and then it looks like its arms are extended out.
I do. I see the legs and the arms. Yes, I
Okay,
see.
okay, and then it looks like a crown is hovering above its head. Okay, so that's what that one looks like. So, and of course the original picture was
Right.
this one right here.
Okay.
Okay, so now this was your original picture of the tiara.
Mm-hmm.
So upside down, this picture to me looks like a face that is pressed against a gate, and it's pressed against the gate so hard that it has started to bleed. I don't know if it's like I really had to sit and stare at this, and then it all of a sudden just came to me. So I don't know how easy it is to see, but like going across, like from left to going all the way up to the right, it looks like there's a gate,
I
and
see
then it
that.
looks like kind of like at the bottom that looks like a face to me, and that face looks like it's coming into that gate, like almost how a kid may press their face up against a gate.
Mm-hmm. A
So
glad. Yeah.
that's what it looks like. It looks like a face being pressed up against a gate, but then it looks like all of these dark marks, all those dark marks look like blood to me. So it looks like the face is being pressed against the gate so hard that it's causing the face to bleed.
Okay.
All right. And so this is,
Oh, my bird.
yep, your birds on top of the dog, and the two birds are having a conversation. So upside down here, this picture looks like two women putting their heads together, but they are on top of a flying dragon.
I see the two women at the top. Definitely.
Okay. So just their head. So from the bottom of, like, I guess where the necks would begin, going down, it looks like on the sides it looks like wings, the wings of a
Okay.
dragon. And in the middle, in between the wings, it looks like probably the head of the dragon. And then under it, the body, and then going down looks like the legs. And it's almost as if it has two tails, one on the left and one on the right.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So I have this one with the two women putting their heads together on top of the dragon. And then here we have the face pressed against the gate. It looks like it's causing blood to come out. And then here, the all powerful sugar glider with the crown hovering above its head. So, which one of these do you want to use to ask me a question?
Number two.
Number two. So that's the face pressed against the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
So, with that particular picture, at what point of your life do you feel as though your face was pressed against a fence and you just couldn't get through and you were going through so much pain? At what point in your life? Because listening to you, even on my podcast and just listening to you in general, there were some times in your life, there were some dark places. And I don't, the spots, I don't see the blood part because ugh. But I see dark places. I just in my mind I replaced it with just because we've all had dark places in our lives.
Right. Mhm.
So with number two, what part of your life or what era or time of your life do you think that represents you? If it does.
from 10 years old all the way up until now.
So
Now,
it's still apart.
so the thing is this. I feel like it's going to never stop just because that is only one part of the story.
Okay.
So, me with my face pressed up against that gate, I'm trying to break through, trying to accomplish something. And for me, I think I told you yesterday, I believe that we're good at something because of our natural ability to do it, but we're great at something because we've been presented with an obstacle and we're still able to accomplish whatever it is we're trying to accomplish. So I believe in order for me to be great at anything, I have to continuously be presented with obstacles. And that gate is that obstacle. That gate is in my face, I'm being pressed against that. So even with podcasting, I'm trying to get my whole podcast network off the ground. This is me with my face pressed against that gate, trying to break through. I did it with music. I did it with everything that I was involved in with entertainment. But then on the other side, the things that I grew up dealing with depression, with anxiety, with paranoia,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then even getting older, and then the doctor diagnosing me with PTSD, and just the forms, the triggers that the PTSD will come in. All of these things. That's me trying to push through something. So so yeah, at every point in my life, and the reason I say 10 years old, because 10 is when I really, really started going through things. That's when things really started to change for me. Um, and even, like I said, even all the way up until now, I just look at it differently than I did back then. Um, the way I see it now is an opportunity to be great. Back then it was just painful, but now it's an opportunity to be great.
Now I'm gonna be Tyrell James, and what
Okay.
I see is this, and I'm going to be Miss V, the storyteller, who helps people to rewrite and change their story. I
Okay.
love what you said about breaking through and all that, but what the part that I would like to change or I would like to see a difference is the fence. And I'm a storyteller, so the fence being there and you being pushed against it. We all have difficult times in our life when we're pushed against something and we need to get through it. But my suggestion is not that you push your way through it, because when you push your way through a fence, you're going to be broken all into pieces. But now, as this man, you're strong enough that you can take your hands and you can pull the bars up apart from this fence, and then you can go through it. You don't have to go through as much because we make a choice how we get through it. We choose how we get through it.
Hmm.
And me pushing my way through, I'm gonna be all broken up, bent up, and all that trying to get through it. But if there's a way that I can still get through it and be less painful, I want to choose that route. So I'm gonna take my arms and I'm going to start pulling those bars apart. And each time I go through something, the bars are going to get further and further and further apart to the point where I can just walk right on through, because I don't feel like you've been through enough pain in your life. You've been through enough hell that you should not have to go through so much to become what you want. You've learned the lessons. You've been through the crap. But we don't have to use the rest of our life constantly going through crap and going through a whole bunch of stuff. So as you're a strong man, you take those bars and you just start pulling those things apart so that you're able to walk through. And that's what I want for Terrell. I don't want you to have to be broken all up going through this stupid fence.
Hmm.
Pull them bars. You're a strong man. Pull them bars and go on right on through.
I tell you what. Right now, I'm going to make you, myself, and everybody that I'm responsible for a promise. From now on, I'm going to open those gates.
Yes,
I'm going to
that's
open those
what I'm
gates and I'm
talking
going to walk
about.
through them. Yep.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. And
Hmm.
all it took was just a changing of the way we think. The
Right.
way that we see things is different. You don't have to do that anymore.
Hmm.
You don't. You've been through it. It's like me. I can use my voice. I've been through all that mess where I don't use my voice. But now my choice is to use my voice to help other people to find their stories, to change their stories, and to make them better people, because God did that for me. And
Hmm.
that's what I want for you and anybody else out there. Stop choosing. Yes, sometimes we have to do things hard, but not for the rest of your life. Damn, take a break, go on a vacation, smile, laugh, do something to make it, you know what I'm saying? You've been through it. It's
Mhm.
over and done. It's like a chapter is closed. Now, let's get to the good part of the meat part of the book. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Right.
Oh, you
Yeah.
see me getting all excited because this is when
Right.
I want to see people do well, and I really
Uh,
want the best.
mhm. Yeah. You know what was funny? I've done, a bunch of these shows, and normally it's the other person that will have a breakthrough. And this time it was me. Um,
Well,
but I mean, I needed it. I needed it. I'm telling you, like it was, with me, naming this podcast the Rorschach Test Podcast, and then the way I break the pictures down, and then the questions that I ask, people often say, in a in a way, I'm kind of in the sitting in the form of a therapist, and and then I'm also a life coach, so
mhm.
I do this for people. I already do this for people, but I have said at times, like I remember my wife said to me one time, she said, you do so much for people. You do so much for other people. She said, you're like Superman.
Mhm.
And I said to her, because I was dealing with I was going through a really rough patch at that time, and I said, yeah, but who saved Superman? Like sometimes I feel like I need something else. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? I
but you
need
know
I
what?
need to hear something. I need to feel. I need to experience something that's going to say, "Hey, Superman, I understand that you're surrounded by kryptonite right now, but here's a way out." You know.
Yeah, but the thing about Superman, you can create, if you're a creative person, you can create somebody to help Superman. There's so
Mhm.
you can create that. But even for you as a person who is constantly giving out and giving,
Mhm.
sometimes you have to sit back and you have to receive and let somebody sow into you. And it's not just about you, it's also about the other person, knowing you can help somebody else. For me, I'm grateful, I'm great, first of all, that we connected, first of all, that you answered the email, and then we connected, and then from the meet and greet that you and I had, for you to just come on my show, it was never discussed or anything about me coming on your show, but it was what needed to be done. And
Mhm.
I'm a God girl, so I believe that God orders your steps and he knows what you need when you need it.
Mhm.
And so, it may be what you need, but some things that you said to me, I've gained. And that's what you want. At the end of the day, you want to learn something and you want to pour into other people. So,
Mhm.
I believe it. And listen, you don't need to go through no more pain. You
You're
have a
right.
you don't need, you've been through enough. And now
Yes,
it's
I
time for
have.
you to change your way of thinking, say, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore, because that's where I am.
Mhm.
I am so, you know what? Because I remember talking to my sister one night on the phone, and I don't know, again, that other person jumped out. I was like, I can't do this anymore. You know what? I can't talk to you no more. I can't do this because what you're doing is tearing my spirit down. You are tearing, I can't, I love myself too much to keep talking to you on the phone.
Mhm.
Now, when you can talk to me a different way and we can have a good dialogue and conversation, you're more than welcome to call me. But if you're going to keep calling me with foolishness, I'm not doing this. I
Mhm.
told a brother, one of my brothers, the same thing. I can't do it because I love myself too much to continuously allow people to come at me to run. I've been through too much.
Mhm.
Now it's time for me to soar. It's time for me to love me and do the things that I want to do. I'm done.
Mhm.
Tyrell, you are done.
Well, look, I really appreciate that. But it's about time for us to wrap up. We're coming up on an hour. I have gotten so much from this. You shared that you have gotten things from this, and I'm
Yes,
really hoping that
absolutely.
everybody watching has gotten something from this too. I feel like this has been a very powerful podcast. Um, so I want to know. So again, we're about to wrap up, but as far as storytelling, what does your story go from here?
Well, what I'm working on right now is I want to start doing classes via Zoom.
Okay.
Because I have the podcast is doing great. I'm having guests on my show. That's wonderful and everything. I have a book out. It's on Amazon. Amazon. It's called Living in the Key of Joy, Volume One, because
Hmm.
there's two volumes out, but my story is a part of Volume One. And I have some books written, but I believe in timing, and it's not the right timing for them yet. But
Okay.
for right now, my desire is I've already put the course together, and it's just a quick and easy guide to help you find your story for branding or small businesses. And so basically what I help you to do is to find your story, to write your story, to attach it to your brand, so that when
Mhm.
somebody looks on your website or when you go someone, you're able to tell your story in a period of time that you don't have people yawning, and in a way that people can receive, because as a
Mhm.
storyteller, most of the time we have time limits,
Right.
and you have to keep people engaged. So there's an art and a gift to storytelling, and
Mhm.
that's what I teach you and I help you to write your story out, find it, write it, and be able to share it with the world in a way that it is received in a good and positive way. So I'm
Okay.
working on that.
That sounds good. Okay, so what all do you have going on? I want you to just let everybody know everything that you have going on, where they can. Well, you already talked about Amazon, and what
Uh,
your book is, but your podcast and
okay.
just anything that you're doing, just let them know where they can find it all.
Okay, so for the podcast, it's called Miss V the Storyteller Podcast, and it's on Spotify, Apple. If you listen on Apple, please leave a review because it helps.
Mhm.
Apple, Google, Amazon Music, and you just type in Miss V the Storyteller Podcast, and you'll see my beautiful picture pop up, and you can just listen to it. I also have a YouTube station called a YouTube channel called Miss V the Storyteller as well, and you can just type that in and it'll pop up. I told you about the book, and then my website is um, GoDaddy's Miss V the Storyteller at GoDaddy's with an S.com,
Okay.
and
All
I'll
right.
make sure you get the information you need.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Yeah, yeah. Send me all that information.
Mhm.
So I can, make sure that when, post the show that everybody's able to connect with you. So, okay, look, before we get out of here, I have one more picture that I want to show you, and I want you to tell me exactly what it is that you see, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
I agree wholeheartedly. I agree.
Can you tell the people out there what you
This
see?
podcast is so dope. And
And
I
I
agree.
couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. Thank
All
you for
right.
your time.
You're
Thank you just for
welcome.
being so open
Oh,
and
yeah.
for sharing that story, well, those stories. Thank you so much. I really feel like somebody's going to hear that and it's going to resonate with them, and they may decide it's time for me to start making changes. Hey, it happened with me on the show
Right.
where
Change your
I decided I
story.
need to make some changes.
Yeah.
So
Change your story. You can change
yeah.
it. You have the pen.
Hmm.
Change your story for the better.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yes, thank you again. And for everybody else out there, y'all be good to each other.